गाइड जो है वो क्लासिक है and it's an absolute favorite of mine in terms of the story, in terms of the songs that are there in the film. It's brilliant. It's brilliant.
But the more I think about Guide, the more I know that this is a film about belief, not just in God or the spiritual belief, but belief in yourself, belief in others believing in you when you don't believe in yourself, and also the secular beliefs, which has been brought in so beautifully.
There are a lot of meaning in the title. Literally, Devanand being guide. Second is Devanand guiding Rosie's character to do whatever she wants to do. And third is whatever your action is, that is guiding to spirituality, I guess.
मतलब वो जानबूझ के वो अनजानपुर विजयानंद ने वहाँ पे वो चूज किया because he doesn't know where he's going to go, and that's the beginning of his spiritual journey.
That is where I think is the genius or the mastery of Vijay Anand.
You're listening to Dime a Dozen Films podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Dime a Dozen Films podcast. We have another exciting episode for you. And before going any further, I would like to welcome both my panelists, Ashu Trikha and Saurabh Nair. Hello, Ashuji. Hello, Saurabh. How are you?
Hello, Nalini ji. How are you? How are you, Saurabh?
Hi Ashu ji. Hi Nalini ji. I'm fine. आप लोग कैसे हैं?
आशु जी, इसके
बहुत बढ़िया।
हाय हाय से हमें छुटकारा नहीं मिलता ना, इसके हाय हाय से। हाय
Hi,
हाय।
hi, hi. Hi, Saurabh. Hi.
So we have something very interesting for our listeners today, and I'm sure both of you are as excited as I am. Today, we're going to talk about a very celebrated personality, a director by the name of Vijay Anand, who was popularly known as Goldie. Goldie Sahab was a story and screenplay writer, an editor, a dialogue writer, a lyricist, director, and an actor. And he had also written plays while he was in college. This podcast is our small tribute to his creativity and his humongous talent and commitment to cinema. Today, we will talk about his best known work, Guide, a timeless classic. So, without further ado, I head to my co panelists, Ashuji and Saurabh. Let's begin with Saurabh. Saurabh, when did you get to watch Guide for the very first time, if you recall? And what did you think of the film?
Yeah, if I recall, Guide I have seen long back in Doordarshan, I guess. That time, I didn't understand much because I was a kid. I didn't understand the complexity of the film. I just saw for the songs. I just remember the movie for the songs. But later on, I think 6, 7 years ago, I revisited it. Then I got to understand the nuances of the film. So I think Guide is one of the most important film of Indian cinema or Hindi cinema. And before that, I've seen Vijay Anand's. I like Vijay Anand's movie, but I couldn't appreciate Guide much because I was more into his thriller films, Jewel Thief, Teesri Manzil, Johnny Mera Naam and all. So Guide, when I saw 7, 8 years back, I understood the nuances of the film, and I and there are many things in the film which can be considered as ahead of its time. So yeah, we will talk about that too.
Yes. Ashuji, आपकी क्या राय है गाइड के ऊपर?
So I'd like to actually start with a little trivia. This how with time changes everything. There used to be a designation in the earlier times called production controller. And do you know who the production controller of Guide was?
Yash Johar.
Yes, Johar.
He's worked with Devanand in so many films, so many.
So
Yeah.
the man who's made one of the biggest banners of this country today was on the payroll of Navketan Films. And that's how you learn your craft, you learn your skill, you learn whatever you want ground up. He became one of the biggest producers of today's times, and his son is carrying the legacy. But to come to the creative of Guide, Guide जो है वो क्लासिक है. मुझे गाइड जो है वो बहुत लेवल्स पे फिल्म बहुत पसंद है बिकॉज कहानी जो है वो एक स्तर पर कुछ एक कहानी बोलती है बट उसके लेयर्स भी है कहानी में, ये रिलेशनशिप्स की लेयर्स भी हैं और कुछ ना कुछ सोशल मैसेज भी दे रही है फिल्म. तो इट्स अ लॉट ऑफ थिंग्स दैट द फिल्म इज अटेम्प्टिंग. और ये सारी चीजें तो इंसान मतलब आई गॉट टू नो. फिल्म को मैंने 2-4 बार देखा है. पहले जब देखा था तब मैं भी सौरभ की तरह मुझे पहली बार ज्यादा समझ भी नहीं आया था. और ऐसा नहीं था कि किसी ने समझाया तो मैंने फिर से देखा. बट मैंने फिर जब रिविजिट की तब चीजें और खुली. जब मैंने फिर रिविजिट किया, हर बार देख करके मुझे कुछ नई चीज दिखती है उसके अंदर. तो मुझे गाइड बहुत पसंद है बिकॉज बहुत कुछ है उसमें देखने के लिए.
जी, बिल्कुल. You know what is very, very special about Guide? Of course, it will always remain my favorite film of Vijay Anand. And like Saurabh, I'm very fond of the thrillers that he's made as well. But you know, Ashuji, this film cannot be compared with any other film. I've been thinking about this. This film is incomparable. At least I haven't seen anything like this. And you know, it is, of course, it's a classic, like you're saying. And also the story, interestingly, of course, it released in 1965. And throughout the story, there is a progressive element, a very, very strong progressive element. And there are also the cultural regressive elements, so to speak, in society, which are running alongside, which makes it so interesting. And which is what, for the first time in 1965, we saw something like this, you know. And for me, also, Guide is, I saw it for the first time as a child. And like Saurabh was saying, the whole spectacle of the dances and everything, all that is very attractive. So you don't really understand the nuances, and it takes a while to watch it again a couple of times to understand those. But the more I think about Guide, the more I know that this is a film about belief, not just in God or the spiritual belief, but belief in yourself, belief in others, and others believing in you when you don't believe in yourself, and also the secular beliefs, which has been brought in so beautifully. And I love the way the screenplay is, pans out, the way he's written the script. And Vijay Anand was so young when he wrote this. Hats off to him. And this is a film of relationships, and it's also a film of a litany of misunderstandings. Every breakdown of relationship is a misunderstanding. And funnily enough, or rather not funnily enough, there's also miscommunication, which I would like to talk about a little later, what I mean by that. So for now, it'll remain my favorite Vijay Anand film.
There is one more thing which I would like to sort of point out here. Like you said, at that point of time, for whatever reason, you must have watched it. Whether you saw it for the music, whether you saw it for the actors, whether you saw it for entertainment, and today, whether you see it for the message and you see it for the deeper meaning that is there to it. The film was relevant then. The film is relevant today. I think the film will be relevant even in future. And that is how this film has broken the barrier of time and generation. And because of its relevance even today, the film automatically becomes a classic, which is something that you can sort of relate to even in today's times. And that is where I think is the genius or the mastery of Vijay.
Yes. Saurabh, why do you think Guide is an important film?
Yes, because you were telling that guide means belief.
Yes.
Guide, but I think the major theme of this film is freedom. It's more about liberation, I guess. Liberating. It's not only about Rosie, but spiritually also you're liberated. Devanand's character, in the end, like second half, or maybe in the end, 30 minutes climax portion, he's spiritually liberated. But- And that death is also, I think, liberation of the soul, I guess.
Yeah, you're so right. It's about the indestructible spirit, no?
Yes. And even the guide title itself is so, there are a lot of meaning in the title. Guide itself, like Raju guide, literally Devanand being guide. Second is Devanand guiding Wahida Rahman, Rosie's character, to get out of her marriage and do whatever she wants to do, dancing and all. And third is whatever your action is, that is guiding to spirituality, I guess, like Devanand's character. So guide has a lot of meaning. The title itself has so many meanings.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I agree. And Saurabh, when I was talking about belief, so when the film opens, of course, he's coming out of jail and is confused about where to go. But when it goes into that little flashback and they show this character, from the first shot itself, he's a very confident, very much for that area, very glamorous guide. Everybody who gets off the station only asks for Raju guide. So there's a lot of confidence. He has a lot of belief in himself. And then he meets up with this lady. He meets Marco and then he meets Rosie. He's always believes in himself. She doesn't believe in herself. All her beliefs and all her things have been taken away from her. So he makes her believe in herself. And then when the relationship progresses, when they get together, he starts losing his equilibrium. He starts losing belief in himself, you know. And then when he goes to that village and is mistaken for a Swami, again, he doesn't believe in himself. And in the end, that's when he believes in. So it's throughout, there's this thread of belief. That's why I said it's not just spiritual belief. Like you said, guide. Exactly, guiding. He's very apt what you said. And also in the beginning, when I said that this about the progressive and the regressive, you know, when she tells him, when they are in love and everything, and she tells him कि मैं तुम्हारे लिए सब कुछ छोड़ दूंगी, मैं तुम्हारे लिए रोटियां पकाऊंगी घर पे और बच्चे and all that, तो उस वक्त वो कहता है कि इतनी प्रोग्रेसिव वो डायलॉग है कि उस वक्त के लिए 1965 के लिए वो कहता कि बच्चे पैदा करने के लिए शादी जरूरी तो नहीं है, imagine in that time. So that is progressive. She's being regressive in that, in her thought process. So that was very interesting for me.
Yes, he has this ahead of its time thinking because of being a guide. Because he has met so many people from in the start at the start of the film itself, he's established that he's very intelligent. He knows many languages. He has this knowledge of history. Met so many people from different country, different point of view. So I think that's why his thought process is very ahead of its time.
Yeah.
Though being in a small town.
Yeah, in a very small town.
He's never shown that he's traveling anywhere. He's like a Kuwa ka Mendak. He's in Udaipur as a guide, but he has so much knowledge by being within the place itself.
Yeah, he's self-educated, not in the formal sense, but in the informal sense. He's a very educated man. Yeah. Ashuji?
Yeah, he has the world coming to him. He's sharp. He's aware of what is happening. His presence of mind is completely there. But most importantly, what you also see through him that so as a guide, you're supposed to speak a lot, but you're also supposed to be observant. You're supposed to know what your clientele is looking for and try and sort of cater to the needs of the clientele. You've realized over there that he's also a good listener. Because if he was not a good listener, he wouldn't have understood what Wahida Rahman was going through in her relationship or what Rosie was going through in her relationship with Marco. He was patient to her, and that is, I think, where probably Rosie's character for the first time realized that, I have someone to speak with, I have someone to bear my soul to. And she opens up with him. She tends to get comforted by his presence, which Marco never had any time for her at all. He never heard her, he never listened to her. These nuances of relationships, of understanding each other and opening up to each other, those things have been handled very, very well in the film. So yes, he's a guy. Yes, he speaks a lot. Yes, he's savvy. The world comes to him. So because he's open to ideas and he listens well, that is why he becomes knowledgeable, because he speaks to them all in their language that they understand and makes them comfortable. But he is a good listener also. And that I thought is extremely critical, very well put or portrayed by the character which Devanand plays, and very well captured by Vijay Anand, very well thought also by the director.
Ashuji, just yes, I think it's before that song plays out, which puts a stamp on their relationship, I think, Tere Mere Sapne, I think. She's so lacking in confidence that when he asks her about love, and he says to her that, so your answer is yes. And you know what she says? She says, at last there's somebody who believes in me. At last, मैं किसी के काबिल हूँ. That is how low on confidence she is, because Marco has taken away all of that. And there's a lot of symbolism in this film. That kicking off the tabla by Marco is just not kicking off a tabla, you know. It's much deeper, that जो भी ये औरत करना चाहती है वो उसको करने नहीं देगा, क्योंकि उसने उसको खरीदा है. और वो डायलॉग में बताते हैं ना कि वो एक्चुअली खरीदी हुई है. और वो कहती है बाद में, तुमने अपने हवस के लिए मुझसे शादी की. And she's so much younger than him. And literally that was just a soda, you know, because she had to get out of her surroundings. And there's so much symbolism in this film. It is just mind-boggling, but we will speak about it as we go along. But that's what I meant. But this film is so important because it's about belief, and it's also about misunderstandings, you know.
Absolutely.
And all three characters, they're all gray. That is also beautiful presentation of human nature.
So by making them gray, he has made the characters real. And if you remember or realize at that point of time, the other films that were releasing at that point of time were all characters where either you were black or you're white. So ये लड़का हीरो अगर है तो पढ़ाई में अव्वल होगा, फर्स्ट आएगा, स्पोर्ट्स में बेस्ट होगा, हरकतें उसकी सारी अच्छी होंगी और वो बुराई के खिलाफ लड़ेगा भी. जो चीज आप अच्छी बोल सकते हैं वो सारी अच्छी चीजें जो है वो एक प्रोटैगनिस्ट में डाला जाएगा, और जो चीजें खराब है, डार्क है, विलेन में डाला जाएगा. जैसे वो सिगरेट पिएगा, दारू पीता है, वो लड़कीबाजी करेगा, ऑल दोज काइंड्स ऑफ थिंग्स ना, they will put it into the antagonist. So the characters were completely black and white, and it was very simple for the heroine to sort of understand कि मेरे को I want to go this route and not this route, because that's what they thought the society was. But what Vijay Anand does is he makes them gray, not black and white. And that is what the realism of the characters come in. And hence, that also adds to the relativity of the film and the story. It just becomes that much more relatable.
Yeah, I think even the characterization of the film is so interesting that even Marco's character, if you see, he loves statues more than his wife.
Yes.
And those statues are also voluptuous, but he is more interested in the voluptuous statue more than his wife, who is like young and very talented, also beautiful, also.
Yes. So because he's had her, I guess, and he's done with her, so then he's having that affair with that other tribal girl, you know, because I mean, she served her purpose as far as he's concerned.
But we never see any kind of intimacy between them, right?
No, never, not one scene. And that's why when she comes into the cave, Saurabh, would you like to talk about that scene before we go into the other aspects of this film? Would you like to talk about that scene where Marco is in this cave and he's looking at all these, and there is something happens?
Suddenly you see this Wahida Rahman's character, Rosie's character, suddenly coming, and she just shows her pile and all, और वो उसके पीछे जाता है.
Yes.
That was also very interesting. And then he thinks that this is that village girl, but she comes and he's very upset, and that confrontation between them is very, very interesting and very path-breaking also. Because Wahida Rahman says to Franco's character, Kane Singh, right? The actor's name?
No, Kishore Sahu.
Kishore Sahu. I always get confused.
Yeah. No problem.
Kishore Sahu's character. And you know that scene, that particular scene where she says that मैं तुम्हें छोड़ दूंगी, that reminded me of Earth, which came many years later. I think Guide was the first film to do that, to tell like a woman telling her husband that मैं तुम्हें छोड़ दूंगी. अगर तुम like तुम क्या छोड़ोगे मुझे, मैं तुम्हें छोड़ दूंगी. That thing, and she literally leaves him also. So those things are very bar. I think for Vijay Anand and for this movie, I think after every sentence I will say this line, ahead of its time.
Yes, but it was ahead of its time. Yeah. And also, yeah, and you know, वो घुंघरू की आवाज, I don't know whether वो सोचता है कि वो ट्राइबल लड़की है. मुझे तो ऐसा लगा कि वो इतना मग्न है उन मूर्तियों में कि उसको ऐसे इतनी मिस्ट्री भी लगती है और इतना एक्साइटेड सा उसके फेस के ऊपर इतना एक्सप्रेशन है कि वो सोचता है कि उसने मूर्ति में भी जान आ गई।
Yeah.
वो कभी सोच ही नहीं सकता कि उसकी बीवी आई है। वो सोचता है कि ये घुंघरू की आवाजें कहाँ से आ रही है, ये मेरी मूर्तियों में जान आ गई,
Exactly.
या इस गुफा में जान आ गई। एंड ही इज काइंड ऑफ डिसअपॉइंटेड व्हेन ही सीज हर, बिकॉज ही नेवर वांट्स हर टू वेयर घुंघरू, राइट? क्योंकि सोसाइटी में वो नाच गाना बुरा समझा जाता था। बाकी सब ठीक है लेकिन नाच गाना नहीं कर सकते, है ना?
And I think there is one shot also, I guess, where that exact scene, confrontation scene. There's a shot where this guys argue with her, or before that, I think, where वो पायल की आवाज सुन के excited होके जाता है. You see a statue's shot where that statue is wearing पायल.
अच्छा,
Yeah,
ओह गुड ऑब्जर्वेशन। अच्छा,
Vijay Anand did a film called घुंघरू की आवाज.
आई नो, एंड ही वेंट थ्रू हेल फॉर दैट। या, और वो मुझे वो वहां का डायलॉग बहुत अच्छा लगता है, जो ये औरत उसको कहती है ना कि अगर मुझे बेवफाई करनी होती ना तो मैं खुलेआम करती, मैं ऐसे जंगल में बैठ के औरतों के साथ नहीं करती, आई वुड हैव डन इट इन योर फेस। एंड द बेस्ट पार्ट इज शी स्लैप्स हिम एंड लीव्स हिम। That is amazing. Of course, after that she breaks down and then she goes and she's crying over there. And Devanand and Ghafoor Bhai, who's that character is played by Anwar Hussain, they are wondering what to do with her.
Just for the sake of audiences, for some people who don't know, Anwar Hussain,
Nargis's brother.
Sanjay Dutt,
Yeah,
yeah, Nargis's
Nargis's brother.
Yeah.
Yes.
The guy who played Ghafoor, right?
Ghafoor, yes. He usually played lots of very negative characters, but he did play some very sensitive ones. In this, he's played such a sensitive character. And you know, I was saying that this film is about relationships. It's about misunderstandings, if you remember, and also miscommunication. So I don't know, one scene, I'm jumping the gun here a little bit, but you know that scene where this is probably politically incorrect to say, but in common parlance, that's how this boy would be called. He would be called the village idiot. You remember what Chota? He looks like Mohan Choti, but he's not Mohan Choti. I always thought that actor's Mohan Choti, but it's not. तो वो जब खाना लेके आता है स्वामी जी के लिए, और जब वहाँ अकाल पड़ा होता है, तो वो आता है and he tells him कि वो भोला को चोट लगी है, सर पे खून है. And then Devanand's character gets very agitated and said, "What are you saying? Are you saying they're fighting against each other? देखो इतना सब हो रहा है और ये लोग आपस में झगड़ रहे हैं. उनको जाके बोलो कि मैं खाना पीना छोड़ दूंगा. एक तो पानी नहीं बरस रहा, वहां पे मैं खाना." So this guy, while he's running down, Devanand doesn't even mean that. He's running down and saying, "Khana pina chhod dunga, pani nahi bars raha, khana pina chhod." That is a miscommunication, misunderstanding, which actually creates a situation that he has no choice but to fast. And in his weaker moments, he actually runs away from them till those two pandits see him. And he comes back. So this film is full of that misunderstanding. Can we talk about that a little bit in the story? Because there's another very huge misunderstanding, Ashuji. Would you like to touch upon that just before he...
So yes. So through the misunderstanding, there is one thing that he has done. You know what he's done is he's actually again gone into the realism of the situation. He spent his time in the jail and he's come and he's not here to create any deceit. He's not here to try and take anybody for a ride. And he's very true to himself also. He knows that he's not a Swami. He knows he's not somebody who can do something like this. And he actually stands up and says that I am not a Swami. And in trying to gain the confidence of I don't know the actor's name. He tells in his past that this is what my past is. Please go and tell them, because he is not interested in keeping sort of a fast for these people, because he believes कि fasting में और rain में क्या लेना देना है. If it will rain when it has to rain, my fasting is not going to help. But he puts his faith in the faith of the people, because they believe he can do miracles.
हाँ, वो आशुजी, वो एक्टर का नाम गजानन जागीरदार है.
Gajanan. Yes, yes.
Yeah.
So when he tells Gajanan Jagirdar his story, what Gajanan Jagirdar does is he says that, oh, he in fact bestows him with further faith. He doesn't go and break the faith of the people. So what Devanand has to do, or what Raju Guide has to do, is he then relies on the faith of the community over there by saying, just looking at him, he says, okay, if they want me to do it, I will do it. So he's not completely sold to the idea also till that point of time. And there is a leap of faith that he takes, because there are so many other people who believe in it. Sometimes science doesn't have all the answers. faith could really lead you away, and you show how it rains at the end. And he also feels liberated at that point of time. So that whole debate at the end between Raju Guide and him as Swami, where there is one skepticism and one where there is person who's talking about faith and soul, and more or less like what Gita teaches to the world, that soul doesn't die. So all those things sort of come in over there. I think all those things are extremely well handled by the director.
आशु जी वो जर्नलिस्ट अमेरिकन जर्नलिस्ट को कहते हैं ना स्वामी के when she asks him do you believe in religion, or he says all science will one day bow down to religion, which is when she realizes oh you speak English and all science, he brings science into that. But आप ये कह रहे थे ना कि वो बिल्कुल सही है, वो अपनी पूरी कहानी भोला को बताते हैं कि मैं लड़की के चक्कर में मैं जेल भी गया हूँ, मैं कोई स्वामी वामी नहीं हूँ. उसके बाद जब भोला फॉल्स एट हिज फीट ही लाइकन्स हिम टू वाल्मीकि. ही सिंह रत्नाकर भी तो वाल्मीकि बने थे. तो उनका फेथ जो है, जो विलेजर्स का फेथ है, वो और भी स्ट्रांग हो जाता है. पर मैं यहाँ पे कहना चाहती हूँ कि दैट थिंग अबाउट बीइंग अ ह्यूमन, यू नो द वीकनेस ऑफ अ ह्यूमन, वो 2 दिन फास्ट करते हैं. राजू गाइड करता है 2 दिन फास्ट, उसके बाद अपनी गठरी बांध के वो भाग रहे होते हैं क्योंकि बर्दाश्त नहीं हो रही भूख.
करेक्ट.
और वो भाग जाता मुझे लगता है अगर वो 2 पंडित उनको नहीं देखते. तो फिर वो इस तरीके से फंस जाता है कि वो फिर देन ही जस्ट सरेंडर्स हिमसेल्फ टू दिस बिलीफ, यू नो. और मिसअंडरस्टैंडिंग और भी है सौरभ, उसके बारे में आप बात कीजिए, जो फिल्म में बहुत पहले आती है. वो जेल किस वजह से जाते हैं, दैट्स आल्सो वेरी वेल रिटन.
That I didn't understand.
अच्छा
That scene. Yeah,
अच्छा
I didn't. I
Okay.
actually I didn't like why he's forced the signature. I think Ashuji knows that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think what he does is it's his insecurity that forces him to forge the signature, because he believes that if Wahida Rahman gets to know anything close or gets associated to Sahu's character, to Marco, he believes that there is a possibility that she might go back, because Sahu is trying to come back. Sahu is trying to, meet with Wahida Rahman at that point of time. So he believes that so that whole thing was about jewelry, कि there is jewelry there in the bank, in the locker. So Raju Guide believes that the jewelry he is going to take away. Marcos Cat is going to take away. He says, so he's so small that he wants to take away the jewelry of Rosie. He says, no, in fact, he wants to give the jewelry away. And now that is, in a way, sort of a symbol of Marco, who that will be retained by Rosie's character also. Again, that is what he doesn't want. He wants a complete separation between two characters. So he says, no, she doesn't want your jewelry. It's a decision that he takes on himself. So he says, if she doesn't want it, then let her sign. Let the bank paper sign, so that at least those things can be taken care of. Raju's character is not wanting to get her to even sign it, because again that insecurity creeps in till he is told that then we'll come through the law, and that is when he says, okay, let me do it. And he again takes things for a second, that if it goes back to Wahida Rahman, to Rosie's character, she will ask few questions. We don't want to get into that situation again. So he forges a signature so that he can keep Rosie's character away from all of this, because for him, the chapter's over. I mean, the moment he signs it and gives it, the chapter is all over. Except that he gets stuck in it when Sahu realizes, or Marco realizes, that the signature is not Rosie's. And he then takes legal action against him. And he goes behind bars because of that.
Ashuji, can I just say a little bit about this as well?
Yes, please.
So he gets a shock of his life when he's in that green room with Rosie, and through that little keyhole or something, that glass panel, he sees Marco standing outside, because all these years Marco तो आया नहीं था. So
Correct.
His whole thing is कि मुझे इन दोनों को मिलने ही नहीं देना है, मुझे इनको सेपरेट रखना है, चाहे कुछ भी हो जाए. ना मैं इसको किताब दूंगा, ना मैं मिलने दूंगा. And he also almost says कि मैं he fastens Kishore Sahu's tie and says मुझे फिर kinds of threatens him. तो जब वो किताब भी आती है उसको फेंक देता है, and he doesn't realize कि उसका सेक्रेटरी है, वो जाके वहीदा रहमान को बता देगा कि मार्को ने किताब भेजी है. तो इन दोनों को मिलना ही नहीं चाहता. That is the height of his insecurity, you know, that if she meets him, she'll go back to him. Going back a little bit even further to this, there is a beautiful scene on a train. Saurabh, if you remember, they're going somewhere and she's got a bouquet in her hand and they're both sitting and her mood is a little off, right? And he's got a check in his hand. He's got a 40,000 rupee check and he's showing it. Dekho, maine kitna paisa kamaya. And then she's not even a little bit excited. She kind of just side glances at him and says कि इसमें मेरा भी हिस्सा है ना राजू. तो he says क्या तुम्हारा क्या मेरा, we are not separate, हम अलग थोड़ी हैं. Then he asks her, he's saying, why don't you ever feel happy looking at the checks, at the money we are making? And she says to him, she says, पैसे तो मेरे पास मार्को के यहाँ भी थे. पैसों की कमी मुझे वहां पे भी नहीं थी. मुझे तो ये फूल जो है इसकी खुशबू से ही खुशी मिल जाती है. तो वो ऑलरेडी she's becoming more and more reticent to what is happening around her and how ambitious and how money minded this man is becoming. And that is why she asked कि मार्को की किताब. मुझे नहीं लगता एक मिनट के लिए भी कि वो मार्को के पास वापस जाना चाहती है, पर वो एक्चुअली बोल
But
सकती
she
है.
says him, but she says to him, right, कि मार्को ने किताब दिया, तुमने उसको क्यों हटा दिया, छुपा दिया? She
Correct.
says also.
Yeah, because that is, I think, coming from a space of how dare you take every decision for me. My decision, whether I want the book, whether I want to meet my husband, should be mine. That's how liberated she has become in her head. Spirited तो थी, इसलिए मार्को को छोड़ के निकल गई, but now she doesn't want anybody to take advantage of her. And I think she wants to make that decision कि तुम कैसे छुपा सकते हो. जैसे सौरभ वो फ्रेंड्स में है ना रेचल और रॉस का.
Yeah.
You know, when Ross starts hiding Rachel's messages, she's not going to go for that party. She's not going to do that. But she doesn't, she wants to make that decision for herself. That how dare you keep my messages. I think that thought is the same here. और forgery उसने इस वजह से जो आशु जी कह रहे हैं बिल्कुल सही है. Insecurity से की है कि ये चेक भी उसके पास ना जाए, उसको पता भी ना चले कि मार्को ने ये डॉक्यूमेंट्स भेजे हैं बैंक के थ्रू. And like Ashuji said, I mean, they're not married. So what will he hold her back with? And incidentally, since we're talking about marriage and kids, I wanted to tell you there's a little trivia that Devanand and Vijay Anand had a little bit of an argument about this. Devanand wanted her to be pregnant with his child in the film. And Vijay Anand would have none of it and said no.
That would have completely ruined the film.
Destroyed the film. It would have destroyed the film. Yeah, yeah.
I think he's the protagonist, so all the spotlight उसको ही चाहिए था, देवानंद देव साहब को.
बिल्कुल.
No, it also means extremely critically. Let the director do his job. He knows what he's doing.
Yeah. एक वो scene है ना वो दिन ढल जाए, which remains my favorite song. We're going to come to the songs. Okay, when we come to the songs, I'll tell you about that. So, Saurabh and Ashuji, can we move on to other aspects of this film? Can we speak about the mounting? Can we speak about the set design? And then can we speak about the song picturizations?
Absolutely. I think in the times of being real, they've also tried to keep the sets extremely real. I think there's a lot of sync sound in the film. So for all the hullabulla that is created nowadays, that this film is sync sound and whatever, initially films used to be sync sound. It is only later on with the incumbent of a technology called Ariflex. When Ariflex came with cameras, they had something which used to do zooms. And those cameras, motors used to make a lot of sound. So hence, the entire sound needed to be recreated. Now the cameras are silent again. So the sync sound has come back. But at that point of time, all the sounds were all sync sound. And hence, you find so much more crispness in the entire dialogues. But in terms of mounting, in terms of setting, all the sets, they look so apt to the entire sequence that is being shot. The lighting also has been done in that way. I mean, it doesn't distance itself again from reality.
It has both real locations and set, right?
Yes.
It was shot entirely in Udaipur, I guess, the portions.
Yes. That song was shot in Chittorgarh Fort. Aaj Phir Jeene Ki Tamanna hai, wo parts of that.
Yeah.
Yes. It's a film which is based in Udaipur and then travels.
You know, for that time, I thought the set of the caves was fantastic.
Yeah.
पर उस वक्त की टेक्नोलॉजी के हिसाब से जो भी set design हुआ, I think he deserves kudos for creating that set, and of course all the sets where they've picturized the songs.
Yeah. There are a lot of mirror shots also in the film. Even if you see Vijay Anand's other films also, even in Guide, though Guide was very different from his other films, but every film, the camera angle, the camera movement has this voyeuristic approach. Even in this film also, there are a lot of shots like, for example, literally there is a voyeuristic scene where Wahida Rehman calls Frank, what's his name, Marco, that village girl. So you see a shot like peeping. Talking about art designing and all mirror, there is a wonderful shot. I think a butterfly shape. There are a lot of mirrors in that, and you see Vahida Rahman or Devanand's shot from that mirror. I don't know which scene is that.
So it's when they're having a very, very tender moment. That's when he's telling her, that they're both together, they're for each other, and now she has him, and she doesn't have to worry about. So it's a very tender moment, and that backdrop is a mirror. And
That mirror sequence to a little very, although very small, it reminded me of Mughal
that's a beautiful shot. I had forgotten about that shot, Saurabh. I
Yeah.
remembered it, and then while we were chatting, you had just mentioned it, so I went back and I saw it. It's very beautiful, yeah. And I want to talk about Vaida Rahman's dancing. I mean, scintillating, no?
Oh,
You can't get enough of it.
absolutely. I agree.
Which is your favorite dance in this, the way her performance as a dancer, Ashuji?
I really liked uh, आज फिर जीने की तमन्ना है because
Acha.
that's an expression which is of a different kind altogether. And that expression makes it, that is where the talent comes into play completely.
Superb. Saurabh, yours?
My favorite is that dance face off.
Yeah.
The first dance, like Devanand watches her dance for the first time, dancing for the first time. That is the very, like, again, it's a very liberating for Rosie's character. Second is that her dance performance is so energetic. Even the other dancer, she gets scared also. She gets intimidated, I guess.
You're talking about Sapere Wala dance, no? Snake
Sapere
dance.
wala dance. Yeah.
That is the highlight, I tell you, really. Oh, yes. Apart from the one that Ashuji is talking about, Ashuji is talking about that absolute gay abandon with which she dances and all her shackles broken. In Sapere Wale dance, उसके shackles अभी भी हैं और उसके चेहरे पे दिखता है ना.
Yeah. She stops in between, right? She realizes that I'm not that person who used to love dancing now, like I'm married. She realizes, and then says to tells Devanand that bolna mat.
Yeah, yeah. So when Rosie becomes Nalini,
आप बन जाती है.
I had to slip that in. So when Rosie becomes Nalini and she sings much later when the check forgery and all has happened, she sings Mose Chal. तो उसके बाद immediately वो एक ट्रांस में चले जाते हैं देवानंद साहब और फिर immediately वो दूसरा गाना शुरू होता है क्या से क्या हो गया ठीक है ना
Correct.
और फिर उनका वो ऐसे ही शुरू होता है कि चाहा क्या क्या मिला है ना तो उनके हाथों में उस वक्त हथकड़ी होती है बहुत बड़े हाथ दिखाते हैं हथकड़ी होती है और पाम्स के बीच में वहीदा रहमान का स्टैचू जैसा or she herself and immediately this song starts and how courageous to have one song after another and if you just listen to both the songs and the lyrics it's giving completely different points of view of both these people how they've looked at the situation. Wasn't that absolutely marvelous? And nobody went out to smoke cigarettes or anything. People thought कि क्या दो गाने डाल रहे हैं विजय आनंद साहब क्या कर रहे हैं and all that.
So if you see, both songs are both the characters are talking to each other. Both are saying to each other that you are bewafa. She's telling Sayya बेईमान, this guy is telling क्या से क्या हो गया बेवफा तेरे प्यार में. So both are, and I think tunes are also same, right? Similar.
Yes, pretty similar. Pretty similar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Same notes are being used actually.
Yes. And probably that's what has the continuity. Maybe that's why people think ये एक ही गाना था.
कितना brilliantly conceived है कि दो गाने जो completely अलग लगते हैं but they're all actually it's the same song and I mean, as in the same notes that are playing, and it has a different treatment. It's just so good.
Visually so beautiful, lyrically so beautiful, music is so wonderful.
Yeah, yeah.
The lighting, the sets, so remarkable. I mean, I want to go back and see that song again. At the end of this song, Ashuji, isn't it so touching that वो किशन देवन का character जो पुलिस ऑफिसर बना है जो उनको लेके जा रहा है जी,
हाँ हाँ,
he comes and asks him ना कि रोजी से बात हो गई, तो वो कहता है हाँ हो गई, लेकिन हुई नहीं है बात, है ना?
कोई नहीं, करेक्ट करेक्ट।
तो वो चला जाता है और फिर ये पीछे से उसको आवाज देती है। शी टेल्स हिम, ऐसा क्यों किया राजू, ऐसा क्यों किया?
हम्म, उससे कहा मुझे लगा तुमको तो समझ में आएगा।
हाँ, और कोई समझे ना समझे, मैंने सोचा तुम समझ जाओगे। And he doesn't explain himself anymore because nothing
Yeah.
more needs to be said, you know.
So that is one thing which I thought is very well put over here also, because for me, uh, in a relationship, at least once Wahida Rahman should have asked, at least once. But she never asks. She assumes that he's done something wrong. And that I think is a problem.
Ashuji, that's why I didn't like Nalini there.
Yeah.
But interestingly, talking about the names, if you see, her name is Rosie,
Yeah,
and it's established that she's a Devdasi.
yes.
Correct.
Usually, Rosie name Bollywood Hindi film में तो generally Rosie is like cabaret dancer. Rosie, Rita ऐसे Christian name रहते हैं. मगर interestingly here there is no they never showed her religion or something.
सौरभ, जब ये फिल्म रिलीज हुई थी ना, तो सब अचंबे रह गए थे कि ये रोजी नाम कहाँ से आया? Why did he call her Rosie?
Did they change that earlier और कोई नाम था क्या?
नहीं, आई थिंक किताब में भी रोजी है ना शायद।
आप में भी रोजी है.
मैंने पढ़ी तो है किताब, लेकिन बहुत पहले पढ़ी है। आशु जी, शायद किताब में भी उसका नाम रोजी है, शायद।
मुझे उसका अंदाजा नहीं है।
हाँ,
मुझे इतना पता है कि किताब में लाइक आर.के. नारायण यूजुअली his stories are always happens in Malgudi.
मालगुडी, यस।
So this is also happens in Malgudi.
नहीं, बट सौरभ, नहीं नहीं, तो दैट्स व्हाई ही वाज अपसेट ना। अच्छा, इसका मैं अब आपने याद दिला दिया, तो मैं आपको ट्रिविया शेयर कर देती हूँ। दैट originally the film was, that part was supposed to be set in Malgudi only, according to the. So Devanand came up with this, and Vijay Anand ended up agreeing with him that from which angle am I looking like a Tamilian? I can't. I will not fit in there. So after they had scouted locations, then they went to scout locations in North India, and they set the film in Rajasthan. Then R.K. Narayan was pretty upset about that as well, among other things.
Yeah, but then this is extremely critical, because you have to be true to the person that you're casting, and I think Devanand is absolutely right here that if he had to play a chameleon, I think the film would have fallen flat on its face.
I agree. और वो गलत चीजें करते, फिर उनको they would have put charcoal and tried to make him dark, and he would have never got the body language, he would have never got the accent. So it's correct what they did, I feel, what Vijayanand eventually did.
But Malgudi is a fictional town, and
Yes.
that is in Karnataka. So the
Correct.
characters are Kannadigas, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, I said Tamilian by mistake. Malgudi is fictional. Yeah.
But I think even in the later show Malgudi Days, that is also in Hindi, and those actors they are also portraying South Indian characters, but they are talking in Hindi. But this is sad that they tried to put charcoal and all. That is that is sad.
Yeah. But they could not have, I think, put guide in Malgudi days. It made more sense in Rajasthan. Anything more you all want to talk about the songs? Please tell us.
Yeah, I would actually like to start with the songs. More importantly, I like to say it from the point of view of the story, from the point of view of the director also. I believe the songs are so critical because every song is actually telling a story. And if you knock the songs off from the film, you will realize something is missing in the film. And and the most interesting part about the film, I believe, is how every song is actually practically a plot point to the film. There is a change in the story, there is a detour, there is a movement of progression of a different kind. The story takes a twist with every song. I don't know whether you have noticed it, but whether she sings Aaj Fir Jeene Ki Tamanna is a place where you realize, okay, she's liberated and she's gone off somewhere else. Whether it's a sapera dance that she's doing, it's again about an emotion where she feels, where you realize that she feels chained and wants to break free from that. Every song is actually like a plot point, according to me, in Guide, which is brilliant, which I thought is excellent.
Ashuji, you're so right, but that is true of Vijay Anand's style. He was a believer, very, very strong, staunch believer that a song has to be there for a purpose. He says if it doesn't serve a purpose, if it's not taking the story forward, then why have it in the first place? You know, today we are only talking about Guide because of lack of time, but all of his song picturizations in other films, if you look at so many of them, they take the story forward. The picturization is so special. And that's what is happening in Guide. You're so right. Every song, even S.D. Burman's song with which the film actually begins, वहाँ कौन है तेरा मुसाफिर जाएगा कहाँ, you know, जैसे जब हम कैजुअली बात कर रहे थे तो सौरभ ने कुछ कहा था उस गाने के बारे में. Saurabh, would you like to tell me what you thought about that song?
That song is a brilliant montage sequence because you see him traveling. It's a road song.
कपड़े भी फट जाते हैं, जूतों में छेद हो जाते हैं, फिर जूते फेंक देता है, फिर there's a beautiful scene.
Before the song, he sees a signboard. उसके बारे में बताइए नलिनी जी.
हाँ जी, तो ये देखिए विजय आनंद की जो क्या कहते हैं जीनियस है ना, कि when he comes out of jail he sees these signages. So one says city and he's standing there and he's looking and that's his city, Udaipur. And there's another signboard and then a third signboard which says Anjanpur. मतलब वो जानबूझ के वो अंजानपुर विजय आनंद ने वहां पे वो चूज किया because he doesn't know where he's going to go and that's the beginning of his spiritual journey. वो कहाँ जा रहा है, you know? और आपने बड़े स्क्रीन में तो देखा होगा आशु जी, लेकिन सौरभ ने ये फिल्म बड़े स्क्रीन पे शायद नहीं देखी है. So I wanted to tell Saurabh, you spoke about the montage in that S.D. Burman song. You know, जब वो उनके देवानंद के पैर में जब कांटा चुभता है ना,
Yeah.
तो सौरभ वो पूरा स्क्रीन वो पैर है,
हाँ,
Oh.
चुभा हुआ कांटा, you know?
Vijay Anand is known for song picturizations, right?
Yes.
तो वो जो आज फिर जीने की तमन्ना, उसमें जो लास्ट अंतरा आता है कि अंधेरों से समथिंग, राइट?
हाँ हाँ.
वो शॉट जो है, लाइक व्हेन लिटरली वो गुफा से कैमरा मूव्स टुवर्ड्स वहीदा who is standing outside, like inside the cave. Devanand is there, and when that first line of that third antra starts, you see a mirror shot again, mirror shot of Vaida Raman inside the cave, and then camera pans towards her, and then वो track से camera is going outside from the cave to outside. So a lot of things is happening even in that 2-3 lines of that last antra. So much camera movement is happening, and you're metaphorically making the audience understand the line. So that is the brilliance of Vijay Anand.
Yes, and throughout this film there's so much symbolism ना.
वो ना एक अनजानपुर के रिलेटेड थोड़ा सा कुछ मैं बोलना चाह रहा था कि उसमें ना, I'm not stating the dialogue really, I'm paraphrasing it, but the meaning is more or less like this. If you remember, maybe you can say कि जहाँ पे वो बोलते हैं कि पहले मैं जिंदगी को लेके जा रहा था, फिर मैंने बोला चलो कहाँ जिंदगी मुझे लेके चलती है. इंसान कितनी बार कोशिश करता है कि अपने लाइफ को ऐसा प्लान करे तो उनको लगता है कि वी आर टेकिंग द लाइफ द वे वी वांट टू, but it's such a big illusion because life really takes you where it wants it to.
This is Devanand's first color film, right?
I guess so.
I'm not aware of this. Possibly. I don't know.
Yes, I guess so. I can't remember any other color film he's done before Guide. No, you're right. They were all black and white. He hasn't done any other color film because everything else, तेरे मेरे सपने और वो सब बाद में आई थी ना, प्रेम पुजारी और ये सब बाद में आई थी. अच्छा, मैं एक चीज पे और टच करना चाहती हूँ कि वो जो हम कह रहे थे ना, ये फिल्म में इतनी मैच्योरिटी के साथ विजय आनंद ने रिलेशनशिप्स हैंडल की हैं, अडल्ट्री हैंडल की है, वो डायलॉग भी डाल दिया कि शादी के लिए शादी करना जरूरी नहीं है बच्चों के लिए, पर इन्होंने
उसमें लिव इन रिलेशनशिप भी दिखा दिया.
बिल्कुल बिल्कुल.
उस वक्त लिव इन रिलेशनशिप दिखाया जबकि शादी जो है वो इतनी अहम चीज मानी जाती थी, और लड़कियों का लड़कों से बात करना भी एक बहुत बड़ी बात हुआ करती थी। ये समाज से लड़ पड़ता है उस वक्त। Devanand, he really literally on his own fights with the society, fights with his own family, almost tends to lose his mother because his uncle takes his mother away, but he still stands by her.
He loses his shop on the railway platform.
He loses everything. He loses
He loses
everything.
everything. And so that's why, you know, when जब वो ताने मारती है ना, एक दो बार रोजी ने इसको ताने मारे हैं। एक बार जब when he's gambling with his friends and she's upstairs with in the room, he comes, he's run out of money, and so किशन धवन का कैरेक्टर उनको बोलता है जाके तिजोरी से ले आना, you know, you have so much money. So he goes up and he takes a checkbook to Vahida Rahman and he tells her to sign a check. So she says बस check sign करने के लिए आ जाते हो तुम मेरे पास, और फिर वो साइन करने आती है। then he tells her कि 2000 रुपए का बनाओ। So she says 2000 रुपए अभी परसों ही तो तुमने लिए थे, you know, वो ताने मारती है। and then when she's sitting in the train or wherever, she tells him that मार्को सही कहता था, आदमी को औरत की कमाई पे नहीं जीना चाहिए, you know. He loses his marbles there. He says, what the hell do you think? I made you. I've sacrificed everything. I've lost everything. You are Nalini today because of what I have done, my efforts, you know. तो वो उनके बीच में वो जो again misunderstanding, but you see it comes down to the basics that it's considered in society, and by the woman who loves him also, she feels ke you're living off me, you know. तो वो ताने मारती है उसको।
This film also is an institution in itself. So much to learn as technically, as a writer, as a filmmaker, as a storyteller. There is so much to learn through this film, even today.
I agree. And Vijay Anand was known when he wrote his scripts, even his first script, his first film. People were shocked. They spoke about it and said when he writes his screenplays, he's got everything there, the shot breakdown, the angle, how many cameras he needs, every single thing, from which place, where the camera is going to be situated. And Devanand himself was blown away. So, I mean, the detail mindedness, and he would stick to his guns, you know, वो टस से मस नहीं होते थे अपनी script से, चाहे कोई कुछ भी बोले. And coming to that, I'm just going to segue into this song, which is my favorite song from Guide because of the mood and the pathos and the lyrics, is when Devanand is so alone and he sings that song Din Dhal Jaye. तो जब वो पिक्चराइज करने वाले थे ना, तो देवानंद और विजयानंद के बीच में एक आर्ग्यूमेंट हुआ था. At that point in time, Devanand said, listen, she has to come, when she comes down from the staircase, she should reach out to me because she's still in love with me, you know, and I'm the hero. That's what he said to him. And yeah, he said in his typical style, she should come and she should reach out for my hand. And they had massive arguments, and Devanand walked off the set. And so Vijayanand didn't budge. He says, no, she cannot touch you. At best, he compromised. If you see that song, it's so beautiful. She comes out, he's sitting alone, और वो आंखें भी बंद है उनकी, और वो अपने कमरे से बाहर निकलती हैं. और वो सिंबलिज्म, जैसे अभी सौरभ ने कहा, वो पहले एकदम से अपने कमरे से बाहर नहीं निकलती. वो पहले वो कुंडी है कमरे की, वो थोड़ा सा दरवाजा खोल देती हैं. ऑलमोस्ट लाइक यू नो, चलो अब तुम आ जाओ, मैंने तुम्हें बाहर बंद कर दिया था, अब तुम आ सकते हो. तो वो आता नहीं है बिकॉज वो नीचे है. Then she comes out, she comes down, she sits just next to him, his eyes are still closed and his hand is on the higher level of the banister. And वो नशे में जब उसका हाथ देवानंद का नीचे आता है, तो थोड़ी सी इनकी उंगलियां टच करती हैं बस, और वो एकदम से जाग जाता है. नहीं आशु जी, इतना सुंदर वो है, इतना सही है. Imagine if she had pulled her hand out and held his hand, the mood would have gone, you know.
नलिनी जी, कितना इम्पोर्टेंट है एक एक्टर को सबमिट करने को, बिकॉज ही हैज टू अंडरस्टैंड दैट ऑन स्क्रीन इट इज नॉट द एक्टर, ऑन स्क्रीन इट इज द कैरेक्टर दैट इज बीइंग परफॉर्म्ड.
Yes.
ये जो ईगो आता ना कि मैं हीरो हूँ, मैं हूँ ये एक्टर जो ये स्क्रीन प्ले कर रहा हूँ. नो, आप एक्टर नहीं है स्क्रीन पे, आप कैरेक्टर है, और कैरेक्टर अगर वो डिमांड करता है तो आपको वही देना पड़ेगा जो कैरेक्टर चाहता है. यू कैन नॉट बिकम सडनली द हीरो और द एक्टर एंड कैरेक्टर पे हावी हो जाओ, वो नहीं हो सकता. सो आई थिंक यू नो इवन इन टर्म्स ऑफ म्यूजिक इट्स, मुझे तो लगता है कि फिल्म का जो म्यूजिक है वो इतना ब्रिलियंट है कि आप गाना जो देख रहे हैं वो तो आपको बहुत पसंद आएगा ही, बिकॉज उसका पिक्चराइजेशन, उसका इमेजिनेशन, डायरेक्टर का, उसकी कोरियोग्राफी, एवरीथिंग इज सो गुड। बट आप जब उसको गाने को रेडियो में सुनते हैं, जो मैंने पहले, मतलब उस वक्त क्या हुआ करता था कि टेलीविजन तो होता नहीं था, ये फिल्म उस वक्त की रिलीज है, और सिर्फ ऑल इंडिया रेडियो होता था, ऑल इंडिया रेडियो में गाने बजते थे, और लोग जो फिल्म के बारे में थोड़ा मोड़ा अगर ऑडियो वैल्यू अगर आती थी तो इट वुड हैपन आइदर थ्रू एलपीज, और इट वुड हैपन थ्रू थ्रू ऑल इंडिया रेडियो। उस वक्त तो टेप्स भी नहीं थी, तो उसका एंटरटेनमेंट वैल्यू इवन ऑन द रेडियो व्हेन यू हियर इट वाज सो गुड, एंड द लिरिक्स मेड यू अंडरस्टैंड what the situation of the song was. So when you went to see it in the film, it added value to what you already knew and you enjoyed it further. बट उसके लिए क्या है कि पहले आपको ऑडियो वैल्यू जो है उसमें एंटरटेनिंग मेलोडी, वो सारी चीजें अपील करनी चाहिए आपके सेंसेस को। और इस फिल्म के सारे गाने, एवरी सिंगल सॉन्ग अपील्स टू योर सेंसेस एंड यू वांट मोर। दैट्स द ब्रिलियंस ऑफ म्यूजिक इन दिस फिल्म एज वेल।
Oh, yes. And Ashuji, I just want to touch on a couple of more things. Vijay Anand has slipped in some very, very beautiful things also in this film. He's also shown the corruption the artist versus commercialization. If you remember, jab ye gambling, he started gambling everything and all of that, and she's with her artistic friends. वहां पे सितार, तबला, पता नहीं वीणा वगैरह है, और वो अपने फ्रेंड्स को एंटरटेन कर रही है, और वो दूसरे कमरे में अपने दोस्तों के साथ बैठ के शराब वगैरह पी रहे हैं। तो देन ही कम्स टू हर एंड ही सेज, रोजी कितना, कब जाएंगे ये सब, हमेशा घेर के रखते हैं तुम्हें। तो वो कहती है ये मेरे दोस्त हैं। तो वो कहता है ये कैसे दोस्त हैं? एंड यू नो व्हाट शी सेज टू हिम, शी सेज तुम तो सिर्फ कपड़े देखते हो, शी सेज तुम जाओ ना अपने दोस्तों के पास बैठो जहाँ पे शराब
Yeah,
चल।
I remember.
या
I remember.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so he's brought that thing that you don't have this in you anymore. You cannot recognize art anymore. You've become so commercial and so greedy in your quest, for money. So he slipped that in. He has also very beautifully, towards the end of the film, he has slipped in that beautiful portion of secularism where Gafur Bhai comes na looking for him.
Yeah, yeah.
हाँ, तो भोला बोलता है तुम अंदर नहीं जा सकते, तुम दूसरे धर्म के हो। तो वो कहता नहीं, वो राजू शायद वो मेरा दोस्त है, उसकी शक्ल इससे मिलती है। तो फिर राजू ऑफ कोर्स हियर्स एंड ही इज सो वीकन बाय दैट टाइम बिकॉज ऑफ द फास्ट। वो आके बाहर अपने, he puts his arms around Gafur Bhai and he also puts his arms around Bhola and he asks Bhola, Bhola मेरा धर्म क्या
Brilliant.
है ना? मतलब क्या ही कहें इसके बारे में। This was also sent to the Oscars. I'm sure you all know that.
Yeah.
But they didn't have the money to pursue it. And David Lean and everybody told Vijay Anand that they wanted this to win the Oscars. And David Lean told Vijay Anand that if you win the Oscar, I'm going to sign you up as a director. And Vijay Anand turned around and told him, I don't want to be a director in Hollywood.
And next year he made Teesri Manzil.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's why it will remain such an important film.
मतलब इसके गाने हों, इसके डायलॉग्स हों, इसके लिरिक्स हों, इसकी परफॉर्मेंसेस हों, इसके कैरेक्टर्स हों, कैरेक्टराइजेशन हो, स्टोरी हो, मैसेज हो, मतलब आप देख लो, all round the film really tells you something.
Gee. Saurabh, is there anything else you would like to add before we wrap up?
Yeah. So Guide is one of the classics, and sadly there is no. We were also talking about this. Like there is no HD print, or it's not available on any OTT platform. I think youngsters should watch this film.
Yeah. So, I just felt, Ashuji and Saurabh, that because of lack of time, we did say that we were only going to speak about Guide. But would you all like to just quickly just skim over the other films of Vijay Anand which made an impression on you, which we won't discuss, but I think he deserves to be acknowledged for the kind of cinema that he made. So over to you, Ashuji, and then to Saurabh.
So for me, what happened was, he was such a filmmaker where he made something like Guide, which made you think, which was comment on the society and the way the society was being taken care of. But he also made a brilliant film like Jewel Thief, which is a thriller. And he then, of course, Tisri Manzil also was a thriller of that kind, which sort of encapsulated you in terms of the storytelling. Where Saurabh touched upon how his cameras are voyeuristic in approach, his camera angles and all. So when you do a thriller, the voyeuristic approach really helps you one hell of a lot. And then you go to the other scale, which is complete commercialization. He's made a film like Ram Balram, which is a completely commercial film with Dharminder and Vinod Khanna, sorry, Dharminder and Amitabh Bachchan and Zeenat Aman. It's such a commercial film, and you still like it. So if you realize, Tisri Manzil was not written by him. He only directed and edited it. So he was a director who had the capability of even adapting to somebody else's story and vision and giving it his own take in terms of telling the story. Although हम दोनों जो है वो it is not credited to Vijay Anand, but I think I will personally give him that credit of हम दोनों, and it's an absolute favorite of mine in terms of the story, in terms of the songs that are there in the film. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. But Saurabh and Nalini ji,
जी
हम दोनों के गाने
अरे क्या बात करें
क्या
फिल्मी
गाने थे।
अरे बाप रे
एक तो
जय
फिल्म तो
देव
कमाल थी और गाने तो क्या थे, बाप रे बाप। मैं जिंदगी का मैं जिंदगी का साथ निभाता चला गया। सुपर यार, क्या बात
और आशीष जी वो लाइटर का आइडिया हम दोनों में कहाँ से आया होगा।
है। अरे यार, आई डोंट हैव एनी आइडिया अबाउट दैट।
हाँ
So for me, in terms of Vijay Anand as a filmmaker, as a complete filmmaker also, if you want to say, he's managed to touch everywhere, all kinds of films, and all his films had brilliant music. So his understanding of music was also phenomenal. This, for me, in short, in real short, is what Vijay Anand is.
absolutely. Saurabh, your favorites?
My favorite Vijay Anand film is Tere Ghar Ke Samne, which is a rom-com, which is not a thriller.
Yeah.
It's such a sweet film.
बोतल के अंदर बोतल नहीं, ग्लास के अंदर नूतन।
और सौरभ वो ग्लास में जब वो बर्फ डालते हैं तो नूतन झुक जाती है।
या लास्ट में या गाने के end में।
तो सॉन्ग पिक्चराइजेशंस में वो एक टॉप का गाना होगा ना सौरभ, तुम्हारी चॉइस का, मेरी चॉइस का।
Yeah, and again, look at the brilliance. Like it's a rom-com. Hero is romancing. Hero is an architect and is romancing in Qutub Minar. That's that's quite interesting. And this is one of the most romantic dialogues I ever heard in any film, I guess. When वो जो गाना है, एक दिल का भंवर करे पुकार. Before that song, when they're in Qutub Minar, inside Qutub Minar, they are walking and Devanand is tired and he looks at Devanand and Nutan both are tired and they stop. And then Devanand looks at Nutan and says that ऊपर देखता हूँ तो सोचता हूँ ऊपर जाऊं कैसे, और जब तुम्हें देखता हूँ तो सोचता हूँ ऊपर जाएं क्यों.
Wow,
Romantic.
that is amazing. Amazing, Saurabh. Oof,
Well done, Saurabh. Well said also. Well done.
oof. बहुत बढ़िया.
I love Bullet also. Bullet.
Don't be funny. Don't be funny.
Yeah, Bullet is my. I enjoyed it. No, I literally liked it. Bullet. मुझे लगता है Bullet देखनी चाहिए एक बार.
अच्छा, मैं एक बार दोबारा से देखूंगी और देखूंगी कि सौरभ का दिमाग क्या हो रहा है, बिकॉज उसमें इतनी फनी चीजें मुझे याद है. ही इज अ कॉप, राइट? एंड कबीर बेदी इज आल्सो इन इट. ही इज अ कॉप एंड देन उसकी वो आईडी कार्ड, वो परवीन भाभी डिस्कवर्स दैट आईडी कार्ड. शी डजंट नो दैट ही इज अ कॉप, राइट? एंड शी
Yeah.
गेट्स अपसेट विद हिम कि वो एक्चुअली पुलिस वाला है.
And you know what's the and it is based on a James Hadley Chase film book, और उस book का नाम क्या मान लो? Just Another Sucker.
Oh God. Actually, that's why he likes Bullet, because he's just another sucker.
What do you mean?
I'll tell you what it means. Nalini ji, please do not revisit the film, because he will then turn around and say, just another sucker.
Yes, exactly. बिल्कुल. Okay. अब मैं बोलूं?
बिल्कुल आप बोलिए.
हाँ, गाइड तो मेरी ऑल टाइम फेवरेट है। उसके बाद मुझे तीसरी मंजिल, जॉनी मेरा नाम, जूल थीफ, और एक फिल्म है जो मेरे बहुत दिल के करीब है, वो है तेरे मेरे सपने। और तेरे मेरे सपने में भी इतने ब्यूटीफुल सारे गाने, दे टेक द स्टोरी फॉरवर्ड। सो these are my favorite films, and I think from what I remember, Saurabh is leaving out one very special film जो इसके दिल के बहुत करीब है। Saurabh,
बुलेट,
उसका नाम,
Blackmail.
बुलेट.
thank
क्या
God,
बोले?
not Bullet, not Bullet. Saurabh, please behave.
ब्लैकमेल.
Yeah,
या
yeah.
वो ब्लैकमेल पे, though we are celebrating Vijay Anand, but one there's a goofy scene, goof up scene in Black Pill. वो एंड में जब शत्रुघ्न सिन्हा अपने आप को गोली मार देते हैं and he dies. So if you see the scene, he's shooting on his head and still he's talking after that. मुझे माफ कर दो. He's dying. मगर उनका टीवी शो भी कवर करना चाहिए.
कौन सा?
हाँ?
TV show, he did a TV show, right?
तहकीकात, तहकीकात, yeah.
That is interesting because Tehkikat few episode was directed by Shekhar Kapoor
हाँ, हाँ.
and other episodes were directed by Karan Razdan.
Karan Razdan, yes.
But interestingly, there is one particular episode which is directed by Vijay Anand,
Hmm.
and that episode is interesting because that episode was based on a novel called. It was inspired from a novel called A Dangerous Game.
Hmm. Hmm.
And Dangerous Game novel पे based थी the recent film चेहरे starring Amitabh Bachchan and Imran Hashmi.
Oh gosh, really? Oh gosh. Okay. What a trivia. Okay, okay. I didn't know that. Okay, okay,
Yeah, तहकीकात में एक episode है which is based on Dangerous Game,
okay.
and that was directed by Vijay Anand.
Wow, wow. अच्छा, एक चीज और मैं मेंशन करूंगी, एज एन एक्टर विजय आनंद may not have got accolades. Some people even said, that he was not that great an actor. But I just wanted to say कि ये फिल्म जो तेरे मेरे सपने है ना, जो मेडिकल प्रोफेशन पे है, इसमें एक बहुत बढ़िया रोल है और उसमें बहुत अच्छा काम किया था विजय आनंद साहब ने. So basically, to wrap this up, we'll say that we absolutely love Vijay Anand. This podcast is full of love for him. I don't know whether we've done justice, but this is what we feel about him as a writer, director, screenplay writer, as a person who has a great understanding of song picturizations, who believed in his screenplays, his scripts, and never compromised on that, and because he did not compromise, he lost out on projects, but he stuck to his guns. And Guide was kind of fell into his lap after a lot of it went through some trials and tribulations, and there were other directors who were supposed to direct it. Chetan Anand was the first person that Devanand had approached, but he was busy with Hakikat, and then he approached Raj Khosla, and then finally the film fell in Vijayanand's lap. And I must add here that the script had kind of already been written for the English film, and he took it and he just started from scratch. And also, Ashuji, before we end, I just wanted to ask you as a director, the way the screenplay moves in Guide, would you like to say a little few words about that before we close? Because it's a very interesting screenplay, how the story unfolds in front of you. Would you like to say something about that?
Yeah, so he's used a non-linear format in terms of revealing or unraveling of the plot of the story. In the sense, when he starts with the film, he comes out of jail and then he looks at the place where he comes from, and there's this little flashback that happens, which tells the story from his point of view to a certain extent only, and then it comes back into real time now, where he starts traveling towards a particular, which is that Anjanpur area. And then you cut back and you realize that the mother and Rosie have come to receive or to take Raju Guide from the jail, and they realize that he's already left, he's gone, because उसको उसकी सजा कम कर दी गई थी. और उसमें फिर वो वहीदा रहमान उसको बोलती है कि आप मेरे साथ चलो, नहीं तो मैं आपके पैरों में गिर जाऊंगी. घर जाते हैं और फिर वहां जाने के बाद अगेन इट गोज बैक इन टाइम, And again, there is a story that is being told at that point of time from Wahida Rahman's point of view कि आपको पूरी कहानी नहीं पता है लेकिन ये किस्सा पूरा हुआ था. एंड अगेन आप फ्लैशबैक में जाते हैं और फ्लैशबैक से जाकर के फिर वापस आज के वक्त में आते हैं जहां पे वो राजू गाइड जो है वो एक्चुअली स्वामी बन गया है. तो ये जो जाना आना जाना, दिस इज व्हाट मेक्स द फिल्म स्टोरी टेलिंग नॉन लीनियर, बट इट आल्सो गिव्स यू an interesting way of holding or engaging the audience.
Yeah, I found it very engaging, Ashuji. I found it very engaging the way it told the story. And I also,
Yeah.
you reminded me of something. There are two more symbolism shots in this, which I just wanted to mention here. You know, जब वहीदा जी उनका न्यूज़पेपर में फोटो देख लेती हैं, तो वो जब आती है ना एक जगह तक अपनी गाड़ी में आती है, and then she can't take her car any further.
Correct.
She gets off, right, Ashuji? And then गर्मी तो बहुत है, सही है कि गर्मी बहुत है, and she's wearing a synthetic sari and she's got a lot of jewelry. तो जैसे जैसे वो जा रही हैं, पसीने आ रहे हैं, वो थोड़ी थोड़ी ज्वेलरी अपनी हटा रही हैं. अच्छा ठीक है, वो तो गर्मी की वजह से, पर मुझे लगा कि वो क्लेंजिंग ऑफ द सोल भी है ना आशु जी. मुझे लगा ऐसे सिंबल, इट वाज अ सिंबलिज्म ऑफ.
Also, he leaves it to the interpretation of the audience to watch it, and that is what art is all about.
Yeah, I think the film is so many beautiful moments, but Saurabh, for me, the climax was the absolute highlight. What about you? Quickly, we'll talk about that and then we'll end.
I think the climax was different, right? Before, I think they changed it.
Actually, he didn't want to die. They
Die,
want
yeah.
मैं हीरो हूँ, मैं मर नहीं सकता, kind of thing. तो अगर वहां पे विजय ने बोला नहीं मरना पड़ेगा.
That was quite interesting because like when he dies, rain comes. So that is quite a kind of a symbolism or some metaphor of liberation, I guess.
Liberation of his soul, yes.
Quote is also comes, right? Quote also comes. Bhagavad Gita at the end.
Yes, yes. So I wanted to tell you this is a little trivia. You know what happened when Guide hit the screens? It didn't do well. People couldn't understand it. And a very famous director, he was not the only director. They came out of the hall and said, मुझे तो समझ में नहीं आई. वो बाहर निकलते हैं लोग और बोलते हैं पिट गई, right? And then what did Devanand do? He put a very large advertisement in the screen. If you remember, Ashuji, how the screen, it used to look like a newspaper.
Newspaper, yeah.
Yeah. So he put a large advertisement there that Raju Guide praying for rain.
Mm.
And then people started showing interest in this. And that's how slowly they understood. He put that thing in the newspaper, you know.
इसकी ending जो है बहुत poetic है.
And it could not have had another ending is what I feel. Because everybody would have said ना कि कुछ लोग ऐसे कहते, कुछ लोगों ने कहा भी कि इनको मिलाना चाहिए था because the romance should have culminated. But the ending was at a much higher level, no? Than just romancing. This was great. Anything, any last points? And then we shall call it a day. Ashuji, Saurabh, anything? Otherwise, can I end the podcast now?
Yeah, please. Nothing from me. We've covered it fairly well.
We hope you enjoyed this podcast. This is for all our listeners and our dedicated listeners. This is a special shout out for you because the comments that you send, the love that you show, it is so precious to us, so precious. So please do keep, supporting us. And if there is something that you don't like, also tell us that and we will improve.
Yes, we will. I would like to thank the listeners for their love. Please keep showering your love over and over again. Your encouragement means a lot to us. And we are completely humbled with your feedback that you send us through various forms. And like Nalanji says, to our dedicated listeners, there is such wonderful feedback that we get from you. It is so good. So whichever corner of earth you are in, please spend some time and listen to our earlier episodes also, because we are an independent podcast. We are not supported by anybody in terms of finances. And your love is all that we seek. Please listen to our podcast. At the same time, it was really enjoyable once again to speak with Nandini and Saurabh. It was a great evening for us. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, listeners, for supporting us. It's an independent podcast. So do follow Dime a Dozen Films, and we are available on Spotify, Amazon Music, and Apple Podcast also. So do listen to us, do subscribe to it, and do share that. Spread uh, the love. If you have the love for cinema, spread it across, and do listen to our previous podcast also. And this is a very special episode. This was a very special episode about Vijay Anand and his legacy, his filmography. So you will love it.
And also, Saurabh and Ashuji, we did a podcast on clutter breakers just before this. And I'm sure the both of you will agree that as a director, scriptwriter, and a person who picturized his song so differently, he was a clutter breaker,
Absolutely.
no?
Absolutely.
And with that, we come to the end of this podcast. I would like to end it with these very special lines.
मैं आत्मा हूँ, अमर हूँ। मौत एक ख्याल है जैसे जिंदगी एक ख्याल है। न सुख है, न दुख है, न दीन है, न दुनिया, न इंसान, न भगवान। सिर्फ मैं हूँ, मैं हूँ, मैं हूँ, मैं, सिर्फ मैं, सिर्फ मैं।